Hello beautiful people, hello beautiful darlings. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paballo Seipei, a South African booktuber. Today we are reviewing The Keeper of the Kumm by Sylvia Vollenhoven. So today I decided to rock my mom's outfit because Sylvia Vollenhoven is like almost the same age as my mom, or my mom is almost the same age as Sylvia, but yeah. Sylvia was born in 1952, my mom 1955. So yeah, they're in the same age group, so I decided to rock this outfit because you know what? I have to look mature for this mature book. I got this book from Matabumuwa. I think I've mentioned this a few times. Matabumuwa, thank you so much for sending this book. I really love it, and I wish this book had a buzz like many other books, because this is a book to have in your library. It's well written because Sylvia Vollenhoven is a professional journalist and she writes really well. So I really loved this book, Matabo. Thank you so much. So this book is an autobiography. Sylvia Vollenhoven is, as I mentioned, a journalist who worked in the apartheid era when it was so hard for a black person or a colored person like her during that time, because colonization was just at its peak that time, and it was so difficult for her. So she shares the story with us from when she was young to when she was in her 60s. Sylvia is called by a Bushman by the name of Kabu. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, but Kabu is a 21st century ancestor who wants Sylvia to share the stories and the teachings about the Bushman people. But when Sylvia gets this calling, she sort of pushes it aside. She knows that there's something about her that is strange, and she knows there's something that keeps on following her that she can't really make sense of. But in the back of her head, she knew that there was someone who was talking to her, and she avoided it so much. And towards the end, she realized that, you know, this calling is not so hard. Her calling was to basically write these stories for her people. That's it, you know. And Sylvia, she became so sick for the longest time. And I think in most cases when you are avoiding a calling, the ancestors make you suffer a bit, and by making you sick, so that you can surrender yourself and answer this calling. So she also fell sick until she met a Sangoma by the name of Neil Campbell. Neil Campbell is a white Sangoma people from Botswana. And Neil is the one that actually helped her to answer this calling, this simple calling of writing stories about her people. And she went towards exorcism because there was a spirit that entered her that was not supposed to have entered her in the first place. But that is like towards the end of the book, when she explains how she surrendered to accepting this calling. And so before that, she went to a mortuary and had picked up that spirit that had to be cleansed out of her. So yeah, that's how she did the exorcism, and she did a ritual and she accepted the calling, and now she is basically writing stories and plays about her people, the Bushman people. Sylvia grows in a time when being black and being colored was the most difficult thing ever in South Africa, and I can imagine the world at large, because they were the last people on the list, because the white people were up there, and the black people and the colors, especially the black colors like her, the dark skin toned like her, were just down there at the bottom of the people. And so there were colors who were light skinned who were better treated than her, and so she wanted to belong so much, but she didn't know where to place herself so that she could belong. And she suffered quite a lot because of that, because of trying to belong in people she didn't fit in. It's so difficult, man. Like, in the beginning, she's a child, she's that colored, but there are also those white coloreds with straight hair. Her hair was not straight, her hair was curly, and she was treated differently. Sylvia was raised by her grandmother, Ma. I love her grandmother. Her grandmother is a grandmother like any other grandmother. Grandmothers who tell stories, grandmothers who are very protective, grandmothers who say it like it is. And her grandmother told a lot of stories, and through those storytellings, I believe that her ancestors were talking through her grandmother at the time, but Sylvia didn't know that, because her grandmother would talk of stories that at the end Sylvia realized that these stories that my grandmother was telling were basically the stories about my people. Sylvia was not raised by her father, her biological father. I think she met twice in her lifetime, and this guy is the one that comes from the Bushman people. She was raised by her stepfather and her mother, and she also had siblings. When Sylvia was young, she was very sick, and she went to see a doctor. She had, like, I don't know, an infection in her vagina. And so later in the years, we discover that the stepfather was raping her. And I'm sorry, this is a spoiler, because she says it right in the middle of the book when you least expect it to happen. She just gives it to you like that. And for me, when I read that part of her as a child having these infections in her vagina, I thought, what, this person was raped. But she didn't mention it, so she played with me there. She played with me because she didn't mention that she was raped. And then later, when she was an adult, she mentioned it. And I was like, wow, hey? Guys, rape. This guy. And the sad part is her mom didn't believe her, because when the nurses or the doctor told her mom that what her stepfather did to her, her mom was like, Sylvia always had an imaginative mind. And I was like, oh my gosh. Why don't we believe our children when they tell us these things? It doesn't matter how long it took them to tell us, but you know what? They're children and these things happen. And I'm so pissed right now because of what her mom did and not believing her. Before we get to a part where she accepts the calling, Sylvia goes to primary school, and high school, and during those times she works hard, because when you don't belong in a place, it is most likely that you will work hard so that you'll be accepted for your merits than for your race. And so she works really hard. She goes into a nicer school, a school that is filled with white people and white coloreds. And so when she was done, she get a scholarship? I think she got a scholarship, and she works for a newspaper. When she gets to that newspaper, she's the only black woman there, and she's treated so unfairly. She's not given any work to do or any articles to write. And so she gets to a point where like she does so much to belong in that group, and that means smoking, drinking, flirting with these people and having sex with them. She goes through that phase where she tries so hard to belong that she loses herself in it. She stays in a place full of people who these people, I don't know how to put it, but they just people who live freely, and they drink too much, they party too much, they smoke too much. And she has this friend, a lesbian friend. I don't know if this friend wanted her to be her girlfriend, but this one time Sylvia goes out with her senior at work, this guy who's a married man. They get drunk, and eventually they go to Sylvia's place. When they get there, they try to have sex, but they are so intoxicated that it doesn't get to the penetration. And so they eventually lie down. It's like a dining room. They sleep there, and when they wake up, they're woken up by this lesbian friend of Sylvia's. And when she wakes her up, she's so angry to see these people there who look like they had sex in that dining room. The friend now swears at Sylvia. Sylvia swears back. They fight about it, verbally. And this girl Sylvia says to this girl, don't you judge me for this, because you just look at yourself. I don't even know where you get your money from and stuff like that. And this girl just hits back by saying, oh, so you got your job by sleeping with these men from your work. And Sylvia got so angry. And at the time, this lady had decided that she was going to hide every alcohol in the house and anything that got them intoxicated, because it was too much for them. And so Sylvia got so mad. Did she stab this girl? I think she tried to stab her, and she couldn't. She got so angry. Sylvia went through the cupboard. She wanted anything that could calm her down. The alcohol was not there. The pills was not there. Nothing was there. And so she saw a powder for the ends, and she drank it. She drank that powder, and she drank that powder, and all of a sudden Sylvia woke up in a psychiatric hospital, because she got so mad and she got so crazy that she drank those things. When she got there, she was a mad person. And she went there to the psychiatric hospital. She stayed there. She didn't talk much, but she enjoyed that she was away from her world. Her world that was so embarrassing for her. She couldn't face that guy at work. She couldn't face her friend. And she just decided that, she wanted to stay longer at the psychiatric hospital. When she was there, she overheard the nurses talking about her, saying that, oh, she's recovering very well, because when they were examining her, her answers were okay. She didn't show any signs of mental breakdown, and so they had decided that she would be discharged. Tia didn't like that. She started to cut herself, and so she cut herself, and when she did, obviously they wouldn't let her out, and she stayed longer. When she did, they tried to call her family. She made up a story about that, but eventually, later, after being in that psychiatric hospital, they called her mom in, but I think it was the second time of going to that psychiatric hospital. And when they interviewed her mom about Sylvia, she told them about everything that happened with her as a young child and stuff like that. And so that's when the part of rape comes in. Sylvia eventually wanted to speak up. She spoke up about the rape situation, but it took her so long. She was scared to say it because she had never said it to anyone. But eventually she spoke about it, and she told them about the rape situation. When they told her mom, that's when her mom said she has an imaginative mind. And I was so pissed about it. So she was discharged from the hospital, went back to work, and before she went to the psychiatric hospital, Sylvia got like a scholarship to go to Jobek, and that's when another chapter of her life begins. She goes to Jobek, she meets journalists, now black journalists, who are on the black consciousness tip. And so she joined that. She loved it. She felt like she belonged because these people were speaking her language. And now she referred to herself as a black woman, not a colored. And so she had a good time there. She learned a lot of things, and she met good people. She made friends there, to a point where she made friends with this other white lady who was a neighbor of Seretse Khammer's. And she met Ian Khammer and went on a blind date with Ian Khammer. So yeah, and then after that she worked again, wrote so many articles. She was on this black consciousness tip, she was on the freedom fighting tip, she wrote articles, and later when Nelson Mandela was released from prison, she spoke to Nelson Mandela, and Nelson Mandela was like, Sylvia, I'm so glad to see you because I have been reading your articles. It was so nice. I love that part. Nelson Mandela wrote, he signed an autograph on her book, and he wrote like a message to Sylvia and to the Swedish people that were helping them fight apartheid. And now a new dawn was beginning when Nelson Mandela was put in power, and another journey of Sylvia began. She was now working in a lot of projects, meeting a lot of prominent people, traveled Africa, did talks, did lectures. She did a lot of things that put her on the map. And that's why I always say, like, why didn't I know about this book? Because she did so much. And I didn't know about her when her work has so much volume. Like, her CV is just incredible. But anyways, she eventually got sick. That's when her sickness just crept in, and she had to retire a bit to attend to this thing that was bothering her. She saw a lot of specialists, a lot of doctors, and in that process she lost her jobs, she lost her possessions, because these specialists and doctors were so expensive. And the saddest one was when she had to auction her most important possessions. She auctioned her book that Nelson Mandela signed and wrote that message. And there's another thing that I'm forgetting now that was so important to her, that she had to auction so that she could rent out a place and attend to this thing. She then met Neil and did this ritual, and that's when things opened up for her. You know, she her journey of discovery was not an easy one, and I can imagine that when you're trying to discover yourself, you tend to off ramp before you can get to the actual you. And so in her case, she experienced so many sad things, so many painful things, but eventually in her 60s she belonged. She knew who she was, and she answered her calling, and she became the Sylvia Vollenhoven that she always had to be. And so I think I have, this is a spoiler, I believe this is a spoiler, and I'm going to end this video here because I'm about to tell you the whole book. I always do this, hey? I always do this. But anyways, guys, like, you need to get yourself this book and read it and understand her and understand where she comes from, because it's easy to judge a person by just seeing them and not knowing their story. But when you know their story, you tend to appreciate them more and appreciate them for telling these stories to us. And I appreciate her so much for sharing this story with us, because it's so beautiful and it's well written. And let me just end this video here, guys. Like, let me just end it. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate you for taking your time to watching this video. Give it a thumbs up, please comment and subscribe to my channel. I will see you on my next video. Bye.